welcome back to the Wizard Weekly, where we talk about everything in gaming. So now that the high of the Nintendo Switch 2 reveal, as mediocre as that was, is over, most of us are now in the day after stage where we can finally, come back to reality and realize that those one-up mushrooms might not have been the best thing for us. Now, I'm not saying that as a diss to the Nintendo Switch 2 console. I mean, obviously it's going to be an amazing handheld no matter, what I say, obviously. But where it comes down to the most determining factor of whether it's going to be an obvious Nintendo Switch 2 follow-up and be as successful as it can possibly be, or be as catastrophic as the PlayStation 3 2006 launched for $599 USD, is because of the aforementioned price tag. Now, in my last video, I did deep dive into this topic and explain how the new Joy-Cons, the new processing, new screen, all that considered, I would like this console to retail in the $400, maximum $450 range. I don't know if I could justify paying the same amount of money for what they're saying, PlayStation 4 graphics, the same price as a PlayStation 5 right now at retail for a Nintendo Switch 2. That's just me personally. But again, I think my toe dealer put something in those mushrooms, because now we're coming back to reality with reports surfacing online that the Nintendo Switch 2 may be between $450 and $500, coming from random reports online. Now, the report does claim that there's going to be two console launch options for, this console, one at $450 and one at $500. So I'm not sure if one includes maybe a game, because I doubt if it was like a OLED model or something like that, it'd be a more substantial price tag given all the already new features that we already have to go off of. I don't know, maybe there's going to be some sort of space difference. We obviously heard from leaks that the original Switch 2 model is going to have 256 gigabytes, so maybe the next one's going to have 512, maybe a terabyte. I don't know, maybe the more expensive version will actually let you browse the internet and use the mouse Joy-Con features to do so, like back in the DS era where you actually had to buy a whole freaking program just to browse the internet on that handheld. It is all up in the air, and honestly, these prices that I'm seeing thrown about on the internet is making me scared, because I do not want to pay this price tag for essentially a Switch that's going to be able to play all the upcoming Switch games for the next at least 1 to 2 years. At that point I might as well just wait for it to go on sale somewhere. But I really do want to have this console day one, just as a fan. But at the same time, I gotta balance being a fan and being able to pay rent. So yeah, April 2nd 2025 just cannot come fast enough for a lot of fans that are curious about this console. But of course, hopefully by then we'll have a better understanding of what the Switch 2 is going to be as far as retail pricing goes. And moving on to some somewhat sad but still kind of cool news is the fact that after 30 years, Insomniac Studios, one of PlayStation's, prestigious first-party developers, their CEO, Ted Price, announced his retirement a couple days ago. Now, before most modern gamers knew Insomniac as being one of PlayStation's top developers, producing Spider-Man and whatnot, taking the company back to the heyday of using that ugly-ass Spider-Man font on the PlayStation 3, Insomniac has been working closely with PlayStation over the past decades to create some of their biggest IPs that they have, like here Ratchet & Clank, the Resistance series from back in the day, even some other IPs for various platforms, and obviously way more cool IPs to come forward, like the new Wolverine game that's anticipated by a lot of people. Anyways, the other day, Ted Price announced his retirement and even went on PlayStation's page to create this entire letter addressing, why he's leaving and who's going to be taking over the whole team. These three men here, the new co-heads of Insomniac, Chad Dezern, Ryan Schneider, and Jen Huang. But I do think that as far as the game industry goes and how, cutthroat it can be, this is definitely the good ending, probably the best ending possible that you can get, having some of the most dope games that define, the last few generations of consoles, and even before that, if you want to count Ratchet & Clank and whatnot, some really cool ass IPs that many millions of people are wanting to play in the future. So the studio is still going to be amazing even after your legacy. Because then you look at other game CEOs like Warner Bros. Game CEO, who recently stepped down after those games haven't been performing the best, like Multiverses or the other DC games like Rocksteady's Superhero Squad. I almost said Superhero Squad. What the hell am I talking about? Suicide Squad. That is more of leaving in just to get the fuck out. You got your time in. Everything isn't going that well, but at least you got to get out. That's more of a escape, more of an escape than a retirement. So yeah, kudos to Ted Price for getting the cool ending in this whole journey of game development and recreating some dope games. But we'll have to wait and see what this means for Insomniac as far as the next generation of games that we get from this really cool studio. And moving on, the GDC, which is the Game Developers Conference responsible for, making reports of the average game developer in modern times and even making expos for game developers as well, they recently made a report that claims that of the 3,000 plus game developers that they surveyed, over 80% of them are mainly developing games for the PC platform, which is up from obviously previous years. They claim that last year, 66% of developers were developing for PC, while this year in 2024, it was over at 80%. And I mean, that's a whole can of worms that just interests the hell out of me with my main, way of gaming being on PC. But interestingly, in the same survey, they claim that, when they asked exactly, what platform they develop for, 44% of the developers, when asking the survey, they chose other and they wrote in Steam Deck as their, main platform that they develop games for. And I mean, the Steam Deck launched in 2022, 2021. In that short amount of time, it has just been impacting the game industry in, the most craziest ways. And now we see the side of game developers where they want to develop for the most convenient platform that we have right now, and even, inexpensive when compared to like a retail PlayStation 5 or, Xbox Series X even. Like the Steam Deck in pretty much every PC gaming handheld right now was so cool to me, because even if you, don't want to get into PC, you can't afford it, or you just don't want to, find the time to build a PC, it's the most inexpensive option that you arguably have right now. And if you know your way around emulation and maybe methods that make you question the legality of it, it can be the most perfect retro gaming handheld that you'll ever need in life. So yeah, while a lot of developers are going for the Steam Deck, makes a lot of sense, but just going on the PC platform itself is also a really smart move, especially now since, I don't know anything about game developing. I can't barely even open Unity or Blender. Like I spent 15 hours in Blender trying to do that dumbass beginner donut that you're supposed to learn when you first start. But I do hear that there's a lot of courage when developing for, major consoles like the PlayStation and the Xbox. Like you got to get your game approved, you gotta make sure it's screened for controls and whatnot. Again, I don't know much, but from what I've heard, it's easier and sometimes even cheaper to get your game on Steam than it is for maybe like the PlayStation Store on the PS5. But again, I don't know much about this. And lastly for today, the titans of the gaming industry that's been running it for the past 20-30 years, a lot of them aren't making the cut to survive in this new climate where the AAA industry isn't, you can't pull a fast one on most players anymore. If a game is ass, we'll immediately know and people are going to buy into it. And now EA is the next, victim in this whole line of AAA, game development, because recently it was reported that they lost $6 billion in market value because of the poor performance of their recent games, Dragon Age, the Veilguard, and FC25, which is the new yearly FIFA game. They renamed it a couple years ago. Now EA is still well above water. They still have games that they can rely on decently, like the new college football game that came out. I forget what the hell that was called, but that did pretty well. I think it was like one of the top sellers of last year. So while they're losing market value in the billions, they're still not at like Ubisoft level right now, where their investors are literally trying to figure out who the hell they're going to sell this company to in the next couple of months. But still, seeing these games that we know have been working for like the last decade, at least when it comes to like FC24, which has always been known to sell well from the microtransactions, it shows that it's time for a change and a shift in the whole industry, which I'm rooting for wholeheartedly. Now, when I say that, I'm rooting for there to be a change in development. I'm not rooting for people to lose their jobs, to lose EA as a development studio. Like, I don't want to see it like shut down like THQ back in the day. I just want there to be a change where they focus on quality in their games. Now, as far as Dragon Age, the Veilguard goes, that game, I made a review on it when I first played it. It was fine. It wasn't nothing to write home about. It was definitely a little cringy with the writing at some points, but I didn't really pay attention to that. I just really enjoyed the gameplay loop. I love playing as mages in like games a lot, so playing as a mage in this game was pretty fun. I will say that it was decent. But if you're looking for a decent story, memorable characters, or even just being able to bring back your protagonist from Dragon Age Inquisition from 2014, since they do make an appearance in this game, that's not in this game. And then FC25, you know, what the hell can I even say about this title? I don't know how people get scammed into paying yearly for the same exact like sports games. Like I will say I am kind of a hypocrite because I did buy WWE 2K22 and then, you know, 2K24 later on, which are basically the same game just with updated rosters, which I could have like downloaded. So I guess partly I do understand if you like truly enjoy the sport, but at the same time, though WWE 2K is not as egregious as freaking NBA, FC, Madden is with the microtransactions, like not even close. Like you can generally play that entire game without having to pay money if you don't want to. Like for $70, I don't understand how FC survived as long as it did, but there's obviously going to be a shift in, you know, their gameplay strategy. I don't know how they're going to innovate on, you know, how it plays. Like I haven't played a FIFA game in like, I don't know, 7 years. So I don't even know how they play anymore. You know, that's just, it's unfortunate, but it's still fortunate for the player to hopefully, you know, get some change in actual quality coming up in the next couple of years from EA. And that is all that I got for today, man. If you enjoyed, leave a like on the video, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.